5:30.
Yep.
Call to order this meeting on August 26th of the Sustainability Commission of the City of Indio. Sarah, would you be kind enough to do a roll call, please?
Chair Chris,
Present.
Vice Chair Getka,
Present.
Commissioner G. Jimenez, absent. Commissioner Liu. Here. Commissioner C. Jimenez, absent.
Okay. Let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. And as always, let's go ahead and start with public comments that are not itemized on the agenda, please. No public comments. We'll go into the minutes for last month. If we could look at the minutes, commissioners, and see if we have a motion to approve or accept. I'm sorry.
Minutes, however, we only have two other people here that were not there, so I'm not sure how that's going to work. Okay.
Okay. And we have, that was June, right? But we have July as well to look at. So if we could look at July, please. And we have a quorum for that.
Make a motion to approve the minutes of July 22nd as, sorry, I make a motion to approve the minutes of July 22nd meeting as written. Anyone second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I make 3. All right, Miss Sarah, we have a presenter today for us.
Yes, Matt McPherson is here. Would you please come up and introduce yourself? Thanks.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate you guys, City of Indio and the Sustainability Commission commissioners having me. Appreciate it. Just flew in from Costa Rica, especially for this. So even though I'm based here, I flew in to see you guys and give this little presentation. Mainly here to help answer questions that you guys have and dispel any myths about solar. So I'll do kind of a quick overview, and then we'll get into a question and answer session. And you guys hit me with questions anytime we're moving along here. Just a little background about me: graduated from Pepperdine University, go Waves. Moved here to the Coachella Valley 2005, started working in the solar industry in 2008, and worked for the same company until about 2017 when they declared Chapter 11 bankruptcy. Seems to be a theme with solar companies now. Worked at Renova Energy from 2018 to 2023. Got out of there early, lucky, and then started working with Hyperion and Sun Power. Now working with Apricot Solar and Electrolink EV charging stations. Just basic solar energy and how things work. Obviously, sunlight is hitting these solar panels and these photovoltaic cells, converting DC direct current power into AC alternating current power, and then be consumed into the house. Electricity flows, the natural law of electricity flow where there's less resistance. So if the home is needing the power at that time, the power will come directly from the solar panels first, essentially using less power from the utility. And that's how you see savings from the utility companies, is by consuming electricity from the solar panels first before buying it from the utility company. Pretty basic. The batteries are now coming into play to assist with power being stored on site and used later when demand is higher or solar is going down. Essentially, the sun is dropping and not making power from the solar panels, and the batteries can kick in and offset some of these time of use programs that the utilities are starting to create. Time of use, or TOU for short, basically means higher electricity cost during the peak time periods, typically about 4 o'clock to 9 o'clock or 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock, depending on the utility. IID has yet to, or has talked about rolling those out, but have not yet. It's still a flat rate cost for electricity. And of course, the batteries are also there to provide power when the power goes out. Imperial Irrigation District that we're talking about here, where we live in Indio, and the majority on this side of Washington Street, all the way down to El Centro and into Imperial, have some of the lowest rates for electricity in the state of California. Average cost of electricity, like I said, is a flat rate, meaning it's the number of kilowatt hours multiplied by the rate that the utility IID here is charging. There are some taxes that come into play. That's where the 18 to 22 cents comes in, depending on what city you're in and what the city taxes are. Will depend on where you're at in that range, but it's a pretty simple equation. The number of kilowatt hours multiplied by the cost, and that's how you get somebody's residential bill. And net energy metering, or NEM for short, ended in July of 2016 for IID solar customers. IID used a public utility document to determine they had reached their NEM obligation, which is strange because IID is not a public utility; they are a municipality. So, but they decided to introduce net billing to replace net energy metering, which gives the homeowner a credit of about 8 cents instead of the retail credit of 18 to 22 cents that they were getting during the net energy metering program. And residential installations dropped dramatically. You can see the numbers there from 4,011, 24.5 megawatts under the NEM versus now 4.37 under net billing. So really kind of poo-pooed solar in IID after net energy metering went away, and it also doesn't help that they have the low cost of energy. And so the avoided cost of energy is essentially how we're calculating what somebody's savings is. A homeowner has a savings when they're paying for their electricity. So if they have, for example, a rate of 22 cents and they have a fixed PPA lease at 19 cents, then their avoided cost of power is 3 cents. They're saving not very much on their power. And so getting a larger avoided cost of power is available via a cash purchase or ownership model. And that allows you to take advantage of the federal tax credits that are available for solar. So the federal ITC is a 30% cost of the system to offset someone's income taxes. And that's available for commercial properties as well. Commercial properties can also use MACRS, accelerated depreciation, so MACRS, to essentially pay off the system. You can spread out those tax credits over 5 years, and that tax credit was extended during the Inflation Reduction Act of 2024. For another 10 years. So we've got a ways before that sunsets. Some different ways that people typically are going solar in the residential space are either a cash ownership option, where they're coming out of pocket to pay for the system, doing some sort of financing loan option where they put zero down and then finance the system for 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. A PPA lease is where it's what's called a TPO product, or third-party ownership, where somebody else, another company, owns the system, and essentially is the homeowner is paying a lower monthly payment than they were before, and that's like that example up above where you have a PPA lease rate of locked in at 19 cents. A lot of PPA leases have escalators, meaning that they can go up every year, which can be dangerous because with IID, you have not had a lot of rate increases over the years. And so if somebody's rate is going up every year, they could go up faster than IID does, in theory. But PPA leases are very popular with people because they put no money out of their pocket, somebody else owns it, somebody else takes care of it, maintains it, and typically is a 25-year agreement with that PPA leaseholder. PACE stands for Property Assessed Clean Energy. It was popular with the HERO program and Y-Green. They were the main processors for PACE, which is a state-run program that allows homeowners to do property improvements regarding renewable energy and improvements to their homes, whether it's HVAC or weather stripping or roofing. Solar falls into that. Water conservation, those kind of things you can do through the PACE financing. It was pretty popular 10 years ago, and it's kind of fallen off a little bit now. But those are the popular ways for homeowners to go solar. I think the big elephant in the room for me is really around IID and what's happening in the next 10 years. So their contract is up in 2033, and I was going over AB 2172, which I would advise you guys to take a look at. That was written up by Governor Wallace, and he really dives into a little bit more about the background of IID and what the situation is with them. But basically, the Coachella Valley Energy Commission was formed in 2020 to create the strategic plan and kind of find out what the next step is between IID and CVWD. So two options were kind of presented, and I think that JPA is the route that the city of Indio has chosen to take, as far as I'm aware of, where they're essentially getting involved in the supply and energy side of things. So the distribution and transmission of the power will still be handled by an entity, whether it's IID or another entity is to be determined. But this is already happening in the city of Rancho Mirage and the city of Palm Springs with the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority and the DCE, where they essentially are buying the power supply and generation side of things on the open market, the California ISO, and their bill in those cities is now split between essentially the Rancho Mirage Energy Authority and SoCal Edison in that territory, which is most likely what will happen here in IID territory, but still to be determined. And another option would be a new public-owned utility would be created. So IID would go away, another utility could be created, and that would be the owner of the lines, essentially. They would be the owners of the lines, and they would handle the transmission and distribution of the power, and they would be billed accordingly. And currently, 60% of IID's ratepayers are located here in the Coachella Valley. However, we have no representation on the IID board. So there's really no way for us to have any kind of say in what's happening in IID, and they've kind of locked out residents of the Coachella Valley to have any kind of representation there, which is sort of backwards, but that's how they're able to keep everything. So that was kind of just a quick overview on solar here in IID and how I can help. I'd love to be a consultant for you guys to whatever any kind of questions you have, happy to answer here, and in the future you guys have my information for what you need.
Commissioners?
You have any questions?
I have a minor question on that lease agreement. So for the solar, at the end of the lease, who owns the panels?
Technically, the leasing company. In most leases, so there are lots of different leasing companies out there. You have Sunrun, Sunnova, SunPower was a leasing company. So there's lots of different leasing companies, and each one's going to have their own terms, essentially. But typically, the third party, the owner of the lease system, still owns it at the end of 25 years, and there's typically three options. Either the homeowner can choose to have the system removed from their home at no cost, because their obligation is done with that 25-year agreement.
Right.
Or option number two is to buy it out at fair market value. So typically fair market value of a 25-year-old system is not going to be very much, but that is another option to essentially purchase the system.
Right.
Or the third option is to continue renewing the lease. So there'll be another option to essentially continue making a monthly payment and having it on a yearly basis normally for that leasing company to continue maintain that system. And that's, I'd say, the big benefit of a lease PPA option is that it's somebody else's system to maintain for 25 years. So should something go wrong or fail, it's on that third party to come out and fix it, ideally.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question, Matt, on the PACE program. Is that a state or is that a federal program?
State program.
State of California, okay.
Yeah, and it kind of went sideways when it first came out. There was a lot of elder abuse issues, and it goes along the same lines with the loans as far as the amount of money that has to be brought into the loan, as far as financing charges and interest rates and things like that. So it's not as popular as it was in the past.
So I don't know if you can answer any, I've got some other questions. As far as status, what's happening here in the valley? I'm sure you're aware of it. SunPower has filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy.
Yep.
And Sunrun is looking at maybe acquiring some of their parts of their operation or whatever.
I haven't heard Sunrun, but it's totally makes sense. They're another big player in the third-party ownership game, and yeah, somebody's going to have to come and take over SunPower's assets, right? So SunPower has a lot of assets, meaning their leases, And that's a big question mark right now is who's going to take over their leases and be servicing this equipment
Right.
per their agreements for the remainder of those lease terms.
How is the general state of the solar industry here in California, would you say?
In the last year, it's definitely dropped down significantly due to the changes in the regulations with the public utilities. I mean, the three big public utilities, SoCal Edison, SDG&E, and PG&E, have the majority of the homeowners in the state of California. And when they changed the rules to be similar to IID's net billing rules, they actually, the big public utilities are actually giving less compensation money-wise per kilowatt hour than IID is now. So that has really poo-pooed the solar industry, because what used to be a 5 to 7 year payback on a cash purchase is now a 10 to 12 year payback period. And mainly because you have to add the cost of the batteries in there to even make these equations work. So before, when you had net energy metering, you could have solar only. You didn't need batteries because you could use the grid to like a big battery, where you essentially spun the meter backwards. You built up these credits, you stored them on their grid, and you used them up throughout 12 months. That whole 12-month rolling cycle is out of the question now, and now they're giving much lower credits. So
Right.
the solar industry, as a whole, has taken a major hit, and essentially you're seeing a lot less installations, and is definitely one of the major reasons SunPower has declared bankruptcy, and Renova had to close its doors as well. So
Yeah, it's unfortunate because Renova's been here a local provider for a number of years. I've got a neighbor that works for that company, so hopefully,
I worked for them for a long time, and yeah,
I see
I'm
that.
assuming that they're going to reopen as far as a service company goes, but who knows?
Right. I also heard that people who maybe installed solar panels like 5, 8 years ago are going to be grandfathered into the rebate program. Is that true? Or?
Mhm. That's very true. Yes. No, I mean, essentially, anybody that had the foresight to do it before these agreements change with utility companies are grandfathered in. So, in IID, if you did it before 2016, you're grandfathered in. In SoCal Edison, the public utility company, the big public utility companies, if you did it before April of 2023, you're grandfathered in for 20 years. So, a lot of people scrambled to get their applications in before April of 2023. So same thing that they did with IID. I mean, I slept outside of the IID offices in 2016 to make sure that we had all the applications in. So, yeah, those people are definitely benefiting greatly. And the biggest thing is that agreement transfers when they sell their home.
Wow.
So it's not it's with the house, it's not with the individual homeowner. So it's a big benefit.
That's a value added.
Absolutely.
What would you say if somebody's looking at going to solar? Where would you suggest they start? What would be their first few steps, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, calling somebody like me, calling a solar company that's going to essentially be able to give them an assessment of their home. My job is really to look at 12 months of somebody's bills and determine whether solar is a good fit for them. And as I said earlier, what was a good fit for a lot of homeowners is not as good of a fit as it was before. But that's really my job, is to paint the picture of what it looks like to the homeowners as far as savings goes. And it really is a matter of how long somebody's going to be in their home, how much power they're using, what their financial situation is, whether they can pay cash and take the tax credit. When you do a cash purchase type option, you're taking all the money that you were throwing away to the utility company and putting it back towards where you ever got the money from. So there's always going to be a payback period there. With leases and loans, your avoided cost of power, like in that example I gave, is so little that it really is going to take the utilities continuing to go up and up and up each year for those to make more sense. But that's the whole, I'd say, reason that people are still doing solar, is that the utility companies continue to raise rates. And what a home used to be $100 a month for electricity 10 years ago is now $200 a month. That trend is going to continue. We're going to see bills be $300-400 a month for that same home that used to be $100 a month. So that's why you're going to continue to see people doing solar, is that the longer they stay in their home, the more they're going to reap the benefits. I joke with people saying the sun's got to go down every day, but that's literally what has to happen with solar panels, and they're pretty resilient. The solar panels themselves are pretty resilient, meaning, and the reason that a lot of these leasing companies wrap everything together for 25 years is because the warranties from the manufacturers are for 25 years, guaranteeing the amount of power, essentially having a production guarantee on those solar panels. So it's not too much concern to have the solar panels continue working. It's some of the other components that are attached to those solar panels that you gotta keep an eye on.
And how many companies are the primary solar panel providers in the U.S.?
In the U.S., not
Or
a
just,
lot.
let's say California.
In California, none, right? I mean,
Well,
there's only one
made
manufacturer. One manufacturer, Q-Cells, has just opened up, or is opening up a plant in Georgia to be able to manufacture actual solar panels in the United States. So there's not a lot of manufacturers or solar panel players in the United States at all. Most of the companies that you recognize are all either installation companies or finance companies, basically like solar banks that have installation arms that do the installations for them. So like Sunrun, for example, is a big solar financing company that now has installation. They've bought a couple companies that do the installations for them, and then have, you know, small local installers like Renova that was in bed with SunPower, right?
My last question, let's say a resident has cash that can go and buy a system or lease a system. What's the trend right now? Have you seen a trend purchasing versus leasing?
Definitely the trend has moved back towards the cash purchase route, just because the leases, essentially, you used to be able to save more money when it was solar only. Now that you have the batteries added in there in order to get the kind of similar savings that you used to see with solar only, now the cost has gotten higher, and so the cost of the leases is higher, and the savings isn't as great. So you don't see instant savings with leases like you did before, where you were cutting people's bills in half. Now it's more of a bill swap, where you're essentially saying, I want to lock in this cost for the next 25 years.
Right.
I know that rates are going to continue to go up. I'm banking on that fact. I look at it like locking in a gas card back in 1990 at $1 gasoline. You'd be pretty happy right now when you're spending $4 a gallon at the gas tank, you know, swiping your $1 gasoline card that you get to sell your car with, right? Your car goes with the $1 gasoline card. So that's the big, I think, selling factor around leases, and then where people are still doing leases is being able to lock in that rate. And as I was saying earlier, a lot of leases, they have escalators on them. And so that's where people have gotten into trouble, is that they've signed up for these escalators that go up at 2.9% or 3.5% per year. So it looks all nice and hunky-dory in the beginning for the first 5 or 10 years when their electrical payment's lower than what IID or the electrical company's charging. But as they're going up at 2.9 or 3.5%, and the utility company's not going up at that same percentage. So in the public utility companies, that's not a problem, right? The public utility companies, they go up on average 6 to 7% per year, whereas IID, we don't have those same increases currently. But that's obviously what is fueling solar, is the future of those rate increases and what's going to happen, the unknown factor of what's going to happen in the future, and the unknown factor of the grid and the stability of the grid, right? We have the electrification of the grid coming. We have EV charging vehicles, you know, chargers being installed all over the place, more and more EVs. The state of California is pushing electric vehicles, so we're going to have the power created to charge those vehicles, along with the computing power of AI and all this kind of stuff. So that's, I think, another concern around the stability of the grid, and that's where you're seeing people add the batteries to their solar panel systems to have that backup just in case the power goes down, in case we have more blackouts or brownouts. We're obviously very susceptible to a terrorist attack, and our grid could be out for, you know, weeks at a time if they wanted to, essentially. So that's why you're seeing people continue to add solar and batteries, just at definitely a slower pace than they were in years past, for sure.
Last question, can we have a copy of your PowerPoint? Can you provide that to Sarah?
Yeah, I mean, she's got it, and happy to send it
great.
along. And any questions you guys have in the future, don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to help. That's what I'm here for. And, you know, a lot of what I do is really consulting and helping people to understand whether solar is a good fit for them or not. And yeah, things have changed definitely in the last couple of years, for sure. So thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Oh, you're not done yet.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Just what-
I know he had questions, sorry.
Just David's questions are over. Okay.
I have a few, so bear with me.
Cool.
Besides the obvious, can you just get into briefly the differences, the pros and cons of purchase versus lease?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, purchasing, you're taking a little bit more of the risk because you own the system, but you're reaping more of the rewards of owning a system because you get to use the federal tax credit. In the lease PPA option, the third party is taking that federal tax credit. So 30% of the cost of the system. And if we look at a typical lease PPA type option and you multiply out the lease payments over 25 years versus what you could do under a cash purchase and using the 30% tax credit, that total number is going to be 2 or 3 times what you could have done in the beginning. So there are pros and cons to both for sure, and definitely the pro of a lease PPA is that you don't have to worry about it for 25 years. So the con is that you're paying a little bit more over those 25 years, but most people are not living in their homes for 25 years, right? So that's the pro to a lease, is that you only pay for it while you live there, and you put no money out of your pocket. It's typically an infinity rate of return, meaning you put no money out of your pocket, you start saving money right away, infinity rate of return, right? Whereas a cash purchase option, you have a set return, meaning you put out X amount of dollars, you got the 30% tax credit, that's your net cost. You're recouping that net cost over a certain time period. Typically now is 10 to 12 years, and it can be even longer sometimes in IID depending on how much money you're spending. So typically, the more money you're spending to the utility, the faster your payback period is going to be. You got economies of scale working for you with solar. Essentially, you know, the more solar panels you put up, the lower your price per watt is per solar panel. Versus if you have a very little amount of solar panels, you're going to pay a higher price per watt because you've got less economies of scale working for you there. So pros and cons to both. I would always advise a cash purchase route for somebody, but obviously not everybody's got a chunk of change to just plop down on their roof. But typically you're seeing a 15 to 20% return on investment under a cash purchase route. So that's you know, what investors are looking for typically, or smart people are looking for.
Thank you. And on the lease option, after the 25-year lease, I'm assuming you said one of the options is to buy it outright. It sells at a depreciated value.
Correct. Yeah. Essentially in the lease contract is going to have a table that shows the estimated buyout price throughout the entire 25 years. And yet at year 25, it's next to nothing. You've paid for the system over the entire 25 years. So I would assume they're pretty much going to give it to you. But yeah, there's going to be some sort of agreement that has to be arranged.
And one of the other options is to release.
Correct.
Is that for another 25-year term, or what's the term?
Year after year.
Year after year.
Yeah.
Year over year.
Year over year. And the question is really more around, is that homeowner that's living in that home having enough power provided by that solar panel system at that time?
Got it.
We may have a lot more things being plugged into our homes in 25 years. Who knows?
So in Indio here, in IID, for a long time we were taught that solar is not necessary in IID. That's not the case any longer. What's changed?
Mainly the fact that IID's rates are are going up more than they had in the past. It was very stable for a long time, like meaning no increases whatsoever. And now people are starting to see those increases, and some of them are coming from the cities. But the only way to get rid of the increases is to essentially provide your own power, and solar and batteries is really the way to do that. I think that the concern around what is going to happen with IID in the future is definitely driving people to do more solar too. You're seeing more and more issues come up with developments and them building and not being able to provide power, and so that's, you know, causing some concern in the community of what is going to happen here in the next 10 years. Is IID kind of bowing out? Are they going to continue to provide power at a stable environment, or is there going to be more blackouts, brownouts, because IID is on its way out and they're kind of wiping their hands clean? There's a lot of unknown speculation currently with what's going to happen in the future.
Okay, thank you. My final question. I appreciate your expertise in solar marketing and sales, but do you also do municipal consulting work?
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
do?
absolutely. I mean, I've done a lot of consulting work all over the United States where companies are calling, just asking questions in general about solar and where the solar industry is going and where to put their money and those kind of things. So happy to act as a consultant. I've been working with an electric vehicle charging company as well, and they've been looking at adding a lot of these electrical vehicle charging stations to commercial buildings and letting the commercial building benefit from essentially people plugging in. So I think that's going to be a big change in, a lot of these charging stations you see right now are either free or, they don't charge, but that's going to go away, and you're going to have essentially just like a gas station does, where you pull in and pay for your gas, you're going to have to pay for your electricity that you're using, and these commercial buildings are going to be able to essentially benefit by getting a piece of that, profit from the chargers.
Commissioner Jimenez?
I don't have any further questions. I know I missed part of your initial presentation, so what I'll do is I'll review once we get it via email, just, what the high-level points were. So thank you for that, and I apologize. I came from work, so.
No worries. Work takes
Thank you.
priority. You're all good.
Mr. McPherson, thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for having me.
Thank you.
All right, action items. Sarah?
Yes, the next item is to make a recommendation to the city council for a zero waste consultant. We do have SBM here to give a presentation, and I also want to let you know that All About Waste did end up pulling their proposal. So we have basically one presentation tonight.
Testing. You guys can hear me. Hi, thank you for the opportunity. I want to start out with the fact that SBM is not Sue Beats Management. I have to clarify that. SBM is actually a janitorial company. We're a global company, privately owned. And our sustainability or zero waste part of this is relatively small. Quite a few of us are based in California. I have another person, Amy's on the call, and she's out of New York. And we're here to answer any questions, but I put together a high-level document on what is zero waste and how can we help support the city of Indio in creating a program and enhancing it. Second. Okay, so I know this is a little bit busy, and you're going to get a copy of this if you haven't gotten a copy of it. But it's very important to realize that zero waste and true certification, which is what we're talking about for these businesses, is beyond just diversion. So diversion is if I have 10 items and I put 8 of them into recycling and 2 of them go into trash and they're equal weights, I'm diverting 80%. Does that make sense? Pretty simple math. But when you go to get true certified, it looks at beyond that diversion rate. It looks at the education and participation of the population at a business. It looks at reduced reuse and recycling and composting. It looks at a training program. It looks at many, many different things. And that's where I feel that the SBM team really exceeds in knowing about true zero waste. And so this is just very high level. It talks about our services. All of those services really align with what happens with zero waste. And I think it's very important to realize. We aligned our proposal, and I know you had a question last month about, why did we include the kickoff meeting? And I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But it's important to realize these different services help support and educate your population of businesses to take things to the next level. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to want to get certified, because they're going to have to tie into this and pay for some of the certification. The city and the state bill is actually supporting the consulting part of it, but there's going to be a buy-in from these businesses. And so we're here to help educate more than just the ones that want to take it to the next step. It's sort of that, if you look at training kids, right? They come home and they teach the parents to recycle more. And that's the same thing that we're trying to do with businesses, is take this to the next level so more people get involved. We also aligned our proposal with the RFP, as well as what should take place to enhance this program and make it the best possible program for the community. Lastly, our team, I mentioned that some of us are in California. I have another person up in Portland, as well as Amy is based in New York. We all intend to be a part of how this works, and I'm going to go into detail in just a minute on the timeline. So what's really important about the community is really the kickoff. And that kickoff requires us to work with the city. We planned for this so that when you send out a message that, hey, we're going to have this team building, this workshop to communicate what's going to happen and what we're offering, we want to be right there with the city and communicate that. In addition, we want to tag team the communication so that we get people motivated, so that they want to do more and help. Because not everybody buys into this. The first thing they're going to ask is, how do I save money? And we want to help educate with that. And that's part of Section 2 as well as Section 3. And Section 2 is actually doing more kickoff meetings than just the initial one. It's almost coming back on a monthly basis, or however the schedule works, to bring in more of the businesses and communicate on different learning things. The first thing that we like to communicate on is that waste bill. That is one thing that we can look at to try and eliminate some of our cost. And so we're going to help with that education, how to document what your diversion is, all the different steps that are involved. But it really is important to go and bring in more than just, quote unquote, 5 businesses to take this to that next level. In addition, we're going to support with virtual support because some businesses don't want somebody on site every month or as often as needed. That way we can have a quick meeting, talk about what's missing, things that we need. That's a very important part of the direction that we want to go with this. And then the last part is really that successful certification. What is the timeline on that? Now, some of these businesses might already be working on this on their own. And that's the best part of things, is if they are, we're going to help them enhance this and look at certification. If not, we also want to bring in more and more businesses to get a lot more people involved and take this to that next level. And then the last part of this is maintenance. And hopefully through everything that we're trying to do with the businesses, it's helping them learn how to do these things and maintain things. You know, let's say a business adds some square footage and improves the head count. That means their trash bill usually goes up. We've hopefully communicated to them and educated them on being able to take this and say, oh, I can go and recycle more, trash less, I can save a few dollars here. So on this next slide, it's just very important for us to align KPIs, key performance indicators, on what the absolute goals are from the RFP, as well as working with each of the businesses to achieve that next level direction for them. The other thing that's going to be very important is the reporting and updates, ensuring that we're giving at least a 3-month and a 6-month evaluation as to where we stand, what's open, communicating with the team from the city to ensure that we're all on the same page. And the last part that we want to get involved in is working with these businesses to do a 3-month and a 6-month survey to see how we did with what we agreed to at the beginning. Sort of that beginning, that middle, and that end spot. And so here comes the timeline that we're looking at. You know, we get the contract awarded. We want to have a kickoff meeting, and that's that planning part of things. That's one of the most important parts of this is, okay, how do we get how many businesses in? What is a better day to do this? How often can we do it? Could we do 2, 3, 4 meetings in a week's time? And then actually scheduling it out so that we're going to that client's location and walking the building with them, taking pictures, being able to document the direction that they're currently at, and then make recommendations and step by step on how to divert more, how to get true certified, zero waste certified, as well as, again, hopefully if we can find a way to help save them money. Look at different ideas. And that's a lot of the experience of SBM. I've been playing in the trash for 30 years. It's something I'm passionate about. I'm making a difference. You know, I don't know about you guys. I have 5 grandsons, no girls. And they're both done, but that's besides the point. Very important that we make change. If we don't make change, nothing changes. And so that's why this is very important with how we communicate and get people motivated to take that next step. So the monthly activities are just some items that we're going to be working on. A lot of that aligns with the RFP and the direction that we're trying to go. One of them is actually doing a waste audit, taking the bags of trash, identifying what goes in recycle, what goes into compost, weighing it all, and putting together an analysis. We like to do a lot of education as well as trying to motivate employees that you might create a green team and there's a couple people that want to do more. And then month since is really looking at that certification process, and it's very important to realize that most businesses cannot go from 0 to 6 months and get certified. So that's why we talked to Sarah about the potential for either 3-month incremental gain and look at it for a potential year. And then lastly, I've got the pricing in here. I didn't know if you guys needed us to go back to that. The italics sort of add up into things, but we've got the 6-month project as well as the 3-month incrementals and what our details look like. I didn't know if you guys wanted me to go into detail.
I think we might have some questions on
Okay. And then why SBM? I think we made it simpler, I guess, since All About Waste has chosen to back out. But, you know, it's very important that we've got a lot of leadership. I was a part of, and I was talking to Sarah a little bit about this, I've been involved for 30 years. The United States Zero Waste Business Council created a business group similar to the United States Green Building Council. And we worked on certification processes, we worked on training for zero waste, and I've been heavily involved in that as the board president of the nonprofit, as well as the tactical advisory chair when it moved into the TRUE program. That lasted 6 years. Award-winning processes and documentation. That's very important on where do we find that best tool and how do we share it versus just keeping it close to our vest and not sharing things. A strong history of success, as well as our commitment to cultivating a successful partnership. I went through it pretty quick, but I wanted to see what your questions were.
I just wanted to ask if any of this work is done in collaboration with like Vertec or any of the, because I know they're busy implementing SB 1383, and so I was just curious if, because I think this sounds like it would really benefit that work, and so I was just wondering if Vertec was involved at all, since I know the City of Indio probably has a franchise agreement with them.
Yeah, I definitely have to include them. It's all a partnership with the different pieces and puzzle pieces. So it's tag teaming with them, and working with them to enhance things, to reinforce the directions that we're trying to go.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
I will let you go first because I have a couple of questions, so
Well, I got a lot, so
Go
you
a-
sure you want to go?
I'll ask one of mine first. Do you have that slide? Do you mind? It's on? Do you so used to me not having it on? Do you have that one slide that I sent to you, Sarah? Oh, you don't have it? Okay. No?
Just a kind of recap.
Okay.
That's for you.
You said no? Okay. That's okay. Then you can go ahead. I was going to throw up that slide just for the commissioners who were not involved in this at the onset, because Sarah and I went through and got TRUE Advisor certification, and I've spent a lot of time working on sustainability. So there is a process. There's a 9-step process. Sue described it a little bit for us, and that's what I wanted to show for the other commissioners who might not have been involved in. So I emailed it to you, but I'm not sure why you did not have it. So the 9-step. Do you happen
It's
to have
actually
it, Sue?
15 categories
No,
that
no,
equal
no.
81.
No,
Which
Sue.
one? What's the?
I'm the expert here. Just kidding.
That's okay.
I'm just moving your
I'm
leg.
excited that you
There-
took the
there's
class.
9. Do you remember the 9 blocks? There's 9 blocks. One that says it's a. Oh, I actually have a paper copy of it here, so you might have it there. There's a 9-step process, and I'll just give an overview just for the rest of the folks here for their benefit who might not. So step 1 is register your project.
Okay.
With GBCI, with the Green Building Council,
Yes.
and your proposal includes that, right?
It does not include it includes the $2,100, which is the registration, but
Okay.
it doesn't, it includes the application, but not the registration. Because
So
the registration's based on square footage.
Okay, so that's the part that we would be,
The business itself would buy into it and pay for that.
yes, or the city might help them, I don't know. Sarah can specify. but you're going to guide them on that, correct, on the registration. And then they do the part that Sue had in the block, which is implementing the recycling, composting. They have to have a sustainability policy, the training, the education, going buying, they call them compactors to compact waste and all kinds of things, the waste audit. That's step 2. Step 3 is submitting the document to the Green Business Council when ready. Now, you talked about that at month 6, but I thought that had to be a 1-year period, that you have to demonstrate 1 year of 90% diversion, correct?
You know what you're talking about.
Yes, I do.
Way to go. It is 1 year of information, but what we
Right.
can do is work with the waste hauler or the invoice bills that they have and work our way backwards if we need to. So
So if they just happen to have started before, then you would use
Yes.
that. But if there's nothing to
Yeah,
show,
most of the time it's-
then
Yeah.
it's gonna have to be a year. So we just assume that it's gonna be a year, and then. But by that time, when it gets to stage 3, and this is the one that I'm talking about, Sue, you would be gone unless you had a.
well, let's see how it goes, because our intent is to try and push this along and help guide everybody so that they're moving along.
Unless you have a contract extension.
Yes.
And there, for the other commissioners, there are a couple of steps beyond that. After that, they schedule Green Building, I guess, comes out and does the on-site.
They don't come out on site anymore. That stopped after COVID.
okay.
Yeah, a lot of everything's done online and with photos.
Okay, and then they get their comments, step 5. Step 6 is the step 6 is where they say they used to come out. Step 7 is a final report, and then there's just some celebration and a case study. So there
Yes.
are 9 steps. So I'm not sure about the 15. I guess I didn't study that
No,
well.
the 15 is the categories that are associated with the certification.
Okay, all right, and okay. So I have other questions, but I just want to just do that overview for the benefit of the other commissioners, and then I'll let them ask their questions.
Well, next time, Commissioner Liu, I wish you'd be more prepared.
I tell you.
We do have someone online who would like to speak.
Okay, go ahead.
Amy, I think if you unmute yourself, you'll be able to speak now. Amy Martman, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, my Zoom audio was trying to connect to something that doesn't exist. But anyway, hi, I'm Amy Martman. I'm on Sue's team. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here and available to also support and answer any questions.
Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. Vice Chair Gecka, your
I
67,000
got lots of
questions.
questions. I'm kind of a newbie to this whole concept, so bear with me.
Sure.
So I had to go back and do some research online about AB 939.
Okay.
And I found out that this was an actual California bill passed in 1989. That's 35 years ago. Required waste management companies to start reducing their amount of waste in landfills by 50% by the year 2000, and then continuing beyond that. So, how long has this TRUE program been in place as far as certification? When that?
Yeah, it came online around 2013.
Okay.
That was with TRUE for the U.S. Green Building Council. Prior to that, the U.S. Zero Waste Business Council, because it merged into USGBC's TRUE program. That was easily, let's say, 2010. And what the whole purpose of both of these places is so that businesses could come back after they've done this great job and are diverted over 90%, that they had someone to certify them to quantify that they were doing, in fact, what they said they were doing. So the first one was Sierra Nevada Brewery out in Chico. They had been diverting over 90% for years and years, but they wanted someone to quantify it. And now there's Disney and Tesla and Taylor Farms, and there's a lot of them that have been certified.
And is this like a national certification across the country? Is that basically what
Global.
it is? Global. Okay. And what department of the government and federal government does anybody oversee this as
No.
far as?
No.
Okay.
There's a couple companies out there that do the certification. True is one. ULE is another one. Most of those are manufacturing specific. They are substantially more than True. So it's not, recycling itself does not fall under any part of the federal government, unfortunately.
Okay.
And if I can add to that, that True is affiliated with as part of the U.S. Greenbelt, U.S. GBC, the organization that does administer LEED as well. So even though LEED is not necessarily government run or mandated, although it is in some cities, and True is aligned with that.
Okay, and then I just want to rephrase TRUE, the acronym. I had to look that up. It's Total Resource Use and Efficiency.
Correct.
That's what that stands for. Okay. So did companies like yourself, consulting companies, you've already worked with the solid waste vendors, correct?
Yes.
Over the years?
Mm-hmm.
So do we know if Vertec already has customers that are TRUE certified here in Indio?
I don't believe so. I don't know if you know. I have
I
not
don't
seen
believe
anything on
so
their
either.
website.
Yeah, I looked on their website. Unfortunately, I only have like a paragraph on Assembly Bill 939, not much beyond that. So, okay, my next question is, has the city of Indio found any potential 5 commercial customers? Do we have any we maybe have as a target, or how does that work?
No, we're taking this step by step. So now that we're at this point, once it's approved by the city council, that's when we'll start the outreach. Once it's really given the actual certification stamp, so to speak, to move forward, then we'll get started on the outreach and so forth.
And do you have any case studies that you can share with potential clients?
Yes, many. I definitely, and it depends on what type of industry they're from.
Right.
But yes, definitely. I mean, whether it's admin space, warehouse, shipping and receiving, you name it. We've got quite a few case studies. I mean, the whole intent behind this is to be able to bring almost like a tool book so that we can work with each of them on their specific needs. Because everybody's different, whether I'm in an office building that's got 10 people in it, an office building's got 150. Each one of them's got their own specific type of people. It does help that we're in California to an extent, that we all want to do better for the environment, whereas we've worked with, let's say, the Midwest, and they have a little bit different struggle, honestly.
So I did some more research, and this is not from your company, but it's from another, probably a similar type consulting company. As far as what they find as facilities that are getting certified with TRUE by category, it looks like retail, at least according to their statistics, is about 33% of their customer base, or I'm not sure where they're getting all these numbers. The other popular area is manufacturing, about 34%. And then it falls off by other types of categories. So, and there are some case studies also out there that, I'll give you just an illustration. Dunkin' Donuts apparently has been certified with TRUE, and they've got about 370 stores. Their case study was they were able to save 10% approximately, and annual savings of about 7,558 tons of food waste diverted annually. So that's pretty impressive, actually. Another company which we might be familiar with is Chick-fil-A. They had about a 9% savings on their monthly waste and recycling bills. So again, and Tesla, I know they've done it. Microsoft up in Washington State's done it. I mean, it's probably a lot of big companies out there. So I think our challenge will be is to find somebody here in Indio that's going to be maybe big enough that would be interested in participating in a program like this. And
Agreed.
I've got some ideas. I mean, restaurants would be a potential big area. And we do have some local, I'm not gonna mention names, but there are some local regional chains that have multi-locations that might be a potential target list. And then my other questions are, I got so many notes here, sorry.
No, it's good.
So let's say you're talking to a company here, and what is the estimate, if they ask you, what's the estimated cost to get totally certified? I know it's gonna be variable, but
Well, it depends, soft cost, hard cost. Time, somebody's efforts and times on site, which is involved. We're gonna help support it and give them the easiest, simplest way to do things that is the most efficient for them. Because we don't wanna spend a bunch of time, working on Excel when we don't necessarily always need that. So that's a large part of this. The other part of it that I think is critical with anybody local is they're going to be responsible based on their square footage, is the way the RFP was set up, that we would work with them and we would help them get certified, do most of the paperwork, so that at their 1-year mark, most of everything has been completed, that they just have to turn it in unless we're still involved.
and then who do you typically work with? I know it's gonna depend on the type of company and what they do, but is it like the quality manager or environmental person with
It's
that
usually a
company?
lot of people. So number one, we start out with the 9 points of generation. Who is throwing things away? Which department? Shipping and receiving? Is it the cafeteria? Is it the office? Is it fleet? Typically, we'll actually schedule a meeting with all of them together and sort of talk through what kind of waste they generate and make them start thinking about, why am I throwing these things away? Is there a better way? Will it help me save money for the business? One of the smaller ones that actually is down in LA is, I just blanked. But what they did is they actually did this meeting with their people, and they started thinking about, I could cut that box and reuse it instead of buying new ones, instead of recycling it, because those things save money. And we're going to talk about all the different parts and pieces of this with each business to help them do better, to help them be able to quantify a reduction or a savings overall. Because a reduction usually will save you money. I stopped buying water cups, we're now using our own cup. That saves you money, you're not buying them anymore. You gotta get people to participate in that though, and we gotta motivate them to do so. So there's just steps that we're gonna work our way through.
So when and if this program is approved, then would it make sense then to first maybe approach Vertec and then see, they might have ideas of clients that might be able to take advantage of this and be interested in it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And again, it's teamwork. It's working with Sarah, whomever she decides. It's meeting with these guys and really talking through. Someone's going to know who's spending the most money on their waste bills. Now, sometimes your waste hauler doesn't always like it when you cut their bills. So, we've got to find a happy spot with all of that.
Could we go back to one of the more important pages is the cost proposal?
Okay.
I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. So this is based on doing 5 potential clients with this program, correct? So is that total project cost for 6 months, is that to be divided by 5, or is that per project, per customer?
So I don't know which line item you're.
The top
So if
one.
you look at the very top one, it's 6 months worth of time. That can be 5 businesses. It could even be more, if we can work people together and try and do some teamwork with
But
it.
it's not a per
No,
client?
it's $98,030 for 6 months.
Okay.
If it includes the additional months, I want to say it's $161,000 if we go a full year.
Okay. That was my basic question. I just want to make sure I understood that.
Yeah.
I think that's all I have.
Thank you.
Amazingly.
I like following Commissioner Gecker because there's nothing left to say.
Oh, I like that.
He gets it all. I have no questions for you. You good?
I'm good, thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate your hard work, thank you.
If I can ask, since they dropped out, what does this look like? You still going back to the next step?
It is really up to the commissioners.
Okay.
She has a question.
Oh,
Yeah, I went like, go ahead, Sarah, please finish.
Right, so it's up to the commissioners to, they can, we have it on here as an action item, and they can either decide to take action on it or decide to take a different route.
okay, that helps, thank you.
Just a couple of kind of, I guess, strategy questions, which I'm sure you've thought of or encountered. You had one line item there, which was the checking on the credits. You know, you have the gold, silver, and the points and so on. So you're gonna do a quick check to see at the beginning, before you get started, whether a facility would have enough credits to add up to get certified before they invest all this time, right?
Exactly.
Okay, that, I like that. When you're doing that, if you come up with the answer that these people, maybe it's an administrative office and there's very little waste, just a toner cartridge and some tissue, and they can't get up to the certified is 31 to 37, silver is 38, gold is another, platinum goes up to 81 points. If they don't have enough, you don't think, to get certified, what would you tell that?
Well, so different things are going on here. So number one, the 31 credits equal a lot of different projects
Correct.
and items that are taking place. If they have a reduction plan, if they're reusing pallets, all of those are different parts than diversion. So one of
I
the
understand.
prerequisites is you must hit 90% diversion over a 12-month period. And so if they're at 87%, we only have to look at 3%, that's not as difficult as if they're at 50%. And so we've got to work through what do they have going on in the facility. That's one of the starting points of this, and this will probably happen in the kickoff meeting is what we're thinking. So that we can talk through, what are you doing? Here's some ideas and things that could take place. And they could say, oh, we are reusing cardboard. Oh, we are reusing this. You know, if you look at, I'm going to use McDonald's as an example. They have a lot of corporate programs to recycle more material. And so are they composting everything in their facility? You know, all the paper wrappers from your cheeseburger or whatever the case may be. Diversion is one thing compared to the points. As long as they're hitting 90% diversion, typically you can hit that 31% threshold as an entry level. We don't want to push somebody to be platinum when it's too hard to get there and it's going to take more money to get there on their behalf, on their timing. We have a life science facility in South San Francisco that we started working with them, and they had a low diversion rate when we started, but we really looked at reduction. They had no idea that they were laundering things and cleaning plastic tubes and other things, and it's a matter of documenting those. It's already taking place. We just have to go in and help document what's going on.
So what I'm reading into your answer is you have not found an operation that couldn't actually achieve this.
We actually found one life science on the East Coast that we were having trouble with, but
right.
part of it is their compost program is only food. So that meant that paper towels and napkins could not go into the compost program. It meant that compostable clamshells for your salad had to go into the landfill. So that made it a lot harder to hit that number that they're trying to achieve.
Okay.
But other than that, other processes are in place, but you still have to hit that 90% as a minimum.
Okay. There's a pre-certification option in the Choose program. It wasn't in the RFP, you know, but what is your personal opinion on whether or not an operation should go after that, this pre-certification well, you can explain what it is.
Well, it's pre-certification. It means you're not hitting that 90% mark. It means you're doing other things to lead up to whatever diversion you're at. I think we've got to see what each of these businesses are at. We don't have a starting point yet. Once we figure out the baseline and who wants to look at this and what the next steps are, what if 10 people are interested? Or 10 businesses are interested? We want to help them. We want to include them in some of this other work so that they're learning and advancing, and then identify through the city or Sarah, you know, which 5 are the priorities. or 10 a priority, and how do we make it all work?
Okay, and
Great questions.
You're gonna leave them, well, you already said you're gonna leave them the spreadsheets and so on.
They will have all of the documentation.
Okay, and that's pretty much, my last question is similar to one of the questions I asked before. It is, when people come in, you know, okay, it's this informational thing, they're just here to check it out, they don't know if they're gonna commit. What kind of criteria is gonna be given to them? Are you gonna get them through to checking their credits first, or getting an idea of costs before? At what point, what are they gonna look at to decide whether they continue with the program or it's just too much? What are you gonna?
So a lot of our thought behind this is actually number one, a lot of this is passion. It's sort of like you've been through the class, you're enjoying this, you're learning from it, and you want to do more. Same thing applies to certain people that, oh, I like this, I want to move forward, what's involved? And that's where, even when we have our first meeting, we're going to have to give them some ideas of what's involved with this. Because I don't want them to think that only it's 1 hour a month, and realistically it's 5 hours a month. I want to be completely forthright with them so that this is a win-win for everyone. The city, the business, the learning of the community, and then also us by just helping communicate it.
Okay, and you know that this will help with the SB 1383 as well,
Yes, it will.
right? Okay, thank you.
Well,
Thank
even,
you.
no offense here, is, you know, I took a picture of your trash can out front that is full of papers.
Yeah,
You know, and it's like, okay, how do we communicate this? How do we get people involved? And that's our starting point.
thank you.
You
Thanks,
bet.
Sue.
Who's the culprit?
Yeah, thank you for
Somebody's
exposing
agendas are
us.
in there.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
One last question, I'm sorry, I
That's
might have
okay.
missed it. How many levels, there's different levels of the true certification, correct? Mm-hmm. Would you review those with us, just real quick?
Oh, goodness. Gold, silver, there's one more, and then platinum. You have them in front of you, I think. I think there's 4.
4, okay.
Yes, certified silver, gold, and platinum.
Yep.
So certified is the lowest tier, that's 31 to 37 points. Silver, gold, platinum, like Sue said, the highest.
It's the highest.
Does that typically equate to what they might save based on what level they're at?
Not always, no.
Okay.
The saving part of things is going to start with the trash bill. Then we're going to go in and look at quantifying what they're already doing to save money that they don't even know they're doing. Because that's a large part of it. The other part of it is, let's say that I pay $10,000 a month for the trash bill, and that's my landfill. And I move 80% of that out of landfill and into recycling. I should hopefully lower that trash bill by 80% and or whatever it's going to cost me to do that small amount of recycle change.
Right.
As well as adding compost. Compost is usually the same cost as landfill. Great questions, you guys. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming down.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that is an action item, so we need to do something with it. Thoughts? Motions?
I recommend that we motion approval.
Do we have a second?
I have some discussion.
Discuss? Good.
Sorry.
No, good.
Okay, so, everybody look at the other proposal? I mean, it's out now, but I'm thinking this was from a cost standpoint, this was a lower price per project from what I could gather. Would you
Correct. Yeah, I
prefer?
agree.
Okay. So, because if we present and the city council this proposal that, okay, let's go with this company, they might say, well, where's the other bids? So we'll have to explain that one was withdrawn, but they need to know that this was a lower price bid. So I don't see any need to go out and ask for more bids again, another RFP. I don't see why we need to do that. And, well, you might have some thoughts on that.
No, there's no technical reason why we would have to go back out.
Okay, all right. So, I was very impressed, and I think we need to get started as soon as we can, because it's a great program, and our landfill is filling up. I mean, we gotta start doing something. And if we can find some champions here in Indio to move this along, that'd be great. So, I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I make 4.
Motion passes. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Sarah. Commissioner comments? Ladies first?
No comments from me at this time, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Liu?
I'll let Commissioner Getka go
Very well.
first.
Commissioner Gecka?
You know, I'm long-winded, so.
That's okay, no problem.
Okay, I did want to just, everybody probably received this flyer from IID, the last August bill. And since we had the gentleman from the Solar Consulting here, it ties in nicely. They had a nice little article here on their flyer, interested in going solar. And Sarah put this up, I kind of scanned this in. And they've got some websites and some information here that, we can go to the next slide, please. Next slide. Okay. So part of this flyer, it points out where you can go and look up this Solar Consumer Protection Guide. It's a 24-page document that you can download. It's a PDF form. And it has a lot of information. It doesn't mention IID on here, but there's just general good information for an average consumer to go in here and learn a lot about solar, some of the pros and cons, what to look out for, that type of thing. So it's a really handy guide, and then you can also determine if it's a good fit for your own home or residence or commercial business. So, and the gentleman we had tonight would be a good resource also to give him a call and ask for an audit, I guess, since he can do that. Next slide, please. So these are some web links here. The top one in the yellow, that's the one you can go on and download that 24-page document on the solar guide. And then you can call IID, and sorry for the blurred bottom section there, but they do have a number you can call or email with questions about their program. On the right side, it doesn't pertain so much to IID customers. It's mainly if you're getting power from PG&E or SCE, but there's some other sources there people can go check out. And then down below, they have information on low-income solar programs that you can look into. And then also regarding a contractor state license board, there's some information on there if people are so interested. So I just thought I would point that out because it did come in the mail this week in my bill. Unfortunately, I have a bill I have to pay, so.
Yeah,
as we
thank
all
you
do.
for sharing the flyer. I just wanted to clarify, I believe the reason maybe IID is not listed in that 24-page pamphlet is because they're not a publicly traded purveyor, and so, but everybody else that you see on that list is, and so that's been, I think, a little bit of, some of the challenges that we've seen.
Well, that makes sense. That's why they're not listed. And the other thing is, you all probably got this little insert too in your billing. We have a sustainability collection event coming up September.
20th.
What is the date? September 21st from 9 to 12 at the Indio Water Authority corporate yard. It's a great program, great service. I've used it. I recommend anybody, if you got things you need to get rid of, you can't just throw in your trash. Check them out on September 21st. So they do a really good, I will say, they do a really good job on these updates IID does, on these flyers to consumers and the residents. So they do a really nice job with that type of thing.
Sarah, will that go on the social media page or the city's social
Yes, it
media?
is.
Okay.
Yes, it will.
Oh, perfect.
Okay, and one thing, well, I better mention this. This was an article in the Desert, Palm Springs Desert Sun. You probably may have seen this. It was a large article on massive cuts to Colorado River supply for Imperial Irrigation District. And it's a program that they've worked out in conjunction with farmers in Imperial Valley. Instead of growing a lot of hay during the hot summer months, they're going to actually offer them money to offset the water usage for their programs or their needs. So this was recently in the August, one of the August papers that they have. I subscribe to it by digital, so just thought I would mention that there are going to be changes coming to our water supply affecting the valley. And since I'm involved with EVs, I I read this is not brand new breaking news, but you may have already heard, a Ford Motor Company has announced, this was in April, they're delaying production of all electronic SUV and pickup trucks. And they have announced they are going to be focusing on hybrid options basically by 2030 only, according to them. That could change, I imagine. Also, General Motors is also looking at refocusing their EV lines back to gas and EV hybrid vehicles. Ford supposedly has lost $4 billion in EV production, not just on the initial startup costs over the last few years, but the repairs. They're having a lot of warranty issues, a lot of repairs, a lot of battery issues. I'm sure Mr. Tesla would be, Mr. Elon Musk would be happy to hear about that. But you know, it's an evolving technology, so it's a huge investment for these car companies to invest in the machinery and the dies and all that. So they are rethinking some of that, the push on EVs, but they're going to have the EV hybrid options, which I have one of those type of cars, so I love it because I'm not restricted to having a charge, and they're finding also these batteries, the range is not holding up if you're running your air conditioning all day in the desert. Your EV battery goes down, or if you're in a cold climate, the EVs are going down faster than what they thought they might. So just things to be aware of if you're looking at buying an EV, because I was looking at getting one this year, but I'm going to get a hybrid again. Anyway, just thought I would mention that. It's kind of an interesting bit of news. And I think that is it for me.
Okay, so I'll just, I gave a little handout here because I believe next month or the month after, we are going to start working on the sustainability plan and update that. And so when we're in here in the chamber, it's not really very much time to think about it. So I jotted down a few notes so that folks can begin to think about it if they want to. And so on page 2 of this, I left this handout here, our sustainability plan update. I guess the picture can't see that. My initial thoughts, and you know, I've got questions in here for the commissioners for you to think about whether this is the way you want to go or not. So it says, commissioners, what is your opinion? Commissioners, what is your opinion? So of course you can't think about that while you're sitting here. So for this, the plan that we have is more than 10 years old. On page 3, it shows the items that were included in page 4, it shows the items that were included in the old plan: climate, housing, transportation, and so on. Page 3, it says, how do we go about this new update? What resources do we need? Are we going to engage a public? What's our schedule? Who's going to lead the show? Other planning factors to start thinking about. And then after slide number 5, it just goes into 2 items, which is suggesting that we pick a framework and we pick a benchmark. So I suggested one framework that we would have on page 7, which is an urban sustainability framework. It's not very complicated because I like simple things, which is that we would just determine first where we are, like how sustainable is our city right now. And I did something really, probably might give you a giggle on the last page, but how sustainable is our city now, the stakeholder input, and then we would measure our results. So that's just the process on 7. On 8 is the part of the goals. We have many of these goals already, but this is just from the UN's perspective, 9 points on what a sustainable city is. I'm not sure if we're going to include all these targets, so it says here, commissioners, do you recommend a different benchmark? On page number 9, it says, what I did is I went to our new best friend, which is AI, And I said, AI, is India sustainable? How does India compare with the UN sustainability goal? And AI answered in less than 2 minutes, 2.0
Was
minutes.
this Chat GBT or what is
Yes.
that?
Yes, it answered. So it will tell you everything about yourself. So this is not my opinion. This is, I mean, but it just gives you some idea. And I don't know whether we want, that's AI's answer. So it says, commissioners, what are your thoughts? So the two takeaways from there are, what are our goals gonna be for the new, what are the elements, goals, that we're gonna look at for this new sustainability plan, and what's gonna be our process? Is it gonna be quick, one and done? Are we gonna have a long process with workshops? So just to give folks something to begin thinking about. So I thought I'd just jump ahead a little bit, or you can toss this out and come back with something new, but just to start to, as they say, tickle the gray cells on that. So that's my little bit of a contribution for today. Thank you.
I also do not have public comments. Sarah, do we have any staff items?
No staff items.
All right. For the record, our next meeting is September 23rd, 2024. I'm ready for a motion if you are.
I will move to adjourn.
Do I have a second?
A second?
All in favor?
Aye.
I make 4. Surviving the
Recording stopped.
You know, I was thinking, have you guys heard of how I think it's the city of Phoenix that has a heat plan? They developed a heat plan. I think I asked Sarah to circulate it. I don't know if it got I didn't see it. But